Nancy Gooch did not come to California by choice. She was brought as a slave. In 1849, her owner loaded up a wagon and crossed the plains chasing rumors of gold. Nancy came with him, not as family, not as partner, but as property. Her hands tended the campfires. Her back bore the weight of every mile. They reached California just as the gold rush exploded. Coloma roared to life, tents and timber rising beside the American River, the town filled with men who came to strike it rich, dig their fortunes from the dirt. Nancy saw something else. A chance. When California joined the Union as a free state in 1850, the law no longer protected slavery. Her owner, now distracted by the fever for gold, made a decision. He let her go. No legal fight, no fanfare, just freedom, sudden, silent, and uncertain. She didn't look back. Nancy stayed in Coloma and found work immediately. She cooked for miners who paid in gold dust. She washed their clothes, cleaned their cabins, swept their floors. She lived alone in a small wooden shack and kept her wages hidden in a tin under the bed. Every coin, every flake, every dollar had a purpose. She was saving for her son. Andrew Monroe had been left behind in Missouri, sold off before she ever saw the Pacific. Years passed, but she never stopped thinking of him. He was a boy when she last held him. In her mind, he still was. She didn't waste her breath on bitterness. She worked. 5 years passed, $700. That was the price to buy back her son's freedom. Nancy paid it without hesitation. She sent for him, and she waited. In the spring of 1857, a coach rolled into Coloma, and Andrew stepped down, taller than she remembered, older, wiser, free. They didn't cry. They didn't need to. They stood together, mother and son, on the same ground where gold had once seemed the most precious thing. It wasn't, not by a mile. Andrew Monroe rose before the sun, as he always did. The air was cool, the earth still damp with dew. He walked his land with quiet purpose, boots pressing into soil that once belonged to no one, now claimed by sweat and stubbornness. He didn't pan for gold. He planted orchards, vineyards, rows of peach trees that swayed in the valley breeze, grapevines curling around wooden stakes. Others chased fortune with shovels and dynamite. Andrew used a hoe and patience. Sarah worked beside him, her sleeves rolled up, hands calloused from harvests. She had come out of Missouri like him, out of bondage, out of darkness. They said very little most days. Didn't have to. She'd plant while he hauled. She'd prune while he patched fences. In silence, they built something permanent. Their children ran wild through the fields. Cordelia, Garfield, James, Andrew Jr., Grant, Pearlie, and William. 7 pairs of bare feet that stomped through creek beds and climbed oak trees. Sarah scolded them, but her voice never carried much fire. Their laughter was a new sound in Coloma, one that couldn't be mined or taxed. The White House stood square and proud near the road. A wagon rested out front, its wheels thick with mud from market runs. Horses grazed behind the barn. A row of sunflowers lined the path to the door, their heads nodding in the light. Coloma had changed. The fever for gold had cooled. Some left, some stayed and drank. But Andrew built. He sold fruit to travelers and townsfolk. He took his boys to the fields and taught them grafting, tilling, and pruning. His girls learned canning and cutting, how to read the sky for frost. They were no longer children of slaves. They were landowners' children, born free, raised proud, and anchored to the ground their father had claimed not by chance, but by choice. And through it all, Nancy watched from the porch in her old rocker. Her eyes followed every child, every tree, every sack of peaches carried down the road. She said little now, but inside she knew. This was the harvest she had worked for, not the fruit but the future. The gold was gone. By the 1880s, Coloma had quieted. The clamor of picks and pans had faded. The river still ran, but fewer came to chase its shimmer. Empty cabins slouched beside broken sluices. Dreams had dried up like the summer creeks. But not all dreams had died. Andrew Monroe stood at the edge of his property, leaning on a fence post worn smooth by time. He watched the morning fog lift from the rows of vines. His hands were still strong but slower now. His sons had taken over the heavy lifting. He didn't mind. He had earned the rest. Tourists passed through these days. Men in coats and hats, women with parasols, their boots too clean for the old mining roads. They came looking for stories, for ghosts of fortune. Some asked him questions. Where was the first gold found? Who struck it rich? Andrew answered politely, then tipped his hat and walked back to the orchard. No one asked what it took to stay. Sarah still walked the land with him, her steps deliberate, her gaze sharp. They tended less now, pruned a little, sat more. The children, grown now, had taken root nearby. Some farmed, some taught. One opened a small store in Placerville. The Monroe name carried weight. It meant work. It meant land. One warm afternoon, a photographer arrived in town. He wanted a record of Coloma's past, before the old buildings collapsed and the names were forgotten. Andrew agreed. He gathered his family, Sarah at his side, the children in a line. Cordelia, Garfield, James, Andrew Jr., Grant, Pearlie, and William. The wagon stood in the background, horses still hitched. Behind them rose the White House. Simple, sturdy, honest. The camera clicked. In that moment, their legacy was captured, not in gold, not in fame, but in faces, in posture, in presence. They had come from slavery, crossed a continent, and carved something lasting from the hills of a fading gold town. Coloma had been a boom town, a flash in the pan. The Monroes were not. They were the proof that roots, real roots, go deeper than gold.